Block 3, Progressives in Power, Section 3, with the section starting with Wisconsin, the Laboratory of Democracy. This guy here, any discussion of progressive successes should start with this, the governor of the state of Wisconsin, Robert La Follette. Earned the nickname Fightin' Bob. Robert La Follette was a political leader from Wisconsin who believed in the wisdom of an educated population. And his reforms that he started in the state of Wisconsin would kind of kick-start, if you will, progressive political reforms. And his reforms were all designed with one idea in mind. La Follette's reforms were intended to increase the people's responsibility and increase the people's power. And what he did just that. He was a believer in federalism. And if you remember from US 1 or AP Gov or any civics class that you ever took, federalism says that the states get to do things that the federal government doesn't get to do. And at its best, federalism creates little laboratories of democracy, is what they're known as. Every state can experiment on how to do things, and what you end up having is 50 in a perfect world, in an ideal situation, 50 different ways of doing something and 50 different experiments running, and then you can really kind of see what works and what doesn't work. La Follette, being the governor of Wisconsin, turned Wisconsin into this laboratory of democracy, and he put many of his reform ideas into practice in Wisconsin. 3 of them are easy to understand: initiative, referendum, and recall. Okay, these were 3 progressive ideas that Governor La Follette put into practice in Wisconsin with the idea of increasing the power of the people and their responsibility. Initiative is the people have a right to propose a new law. And the way this works is you do it by getting signatures. So let's say you want to pass a law saying that everybody, gets free Cheetos every night. If you walked around the state of Wisconsin and you would get people to sign on to this petition, we would like the government of the state of Wisconsin to take up this question concerning Cheeto consumption. And if you got a certain amount of signatures, it would go onto the government's legislative calendar. And then one time, the state government in Wisconsin would take up the question, should people get free Cheetos every night? That's initiative. Ideas for new laws. People are taking the initiative. That's why it's called that. And they can propose a new law, which the legislature in Wisconsin would then debate. The second one is called referendum. This is when the legislature does not do what the people want it to do. Let's say, for example, concerning the Cheetos law, that legislature said, no, people don't need free Cheetos and it's not going to become a law. The people of the state of Wisconsin, and now many different states, can do what's called a referendum. So when you go to vote, not only are you going to vote on who's going to represent you in office, there will be a question on the ballot. Should we be given free Cheetos every night? You vote yes, or you vote no. And if more than 50% of the people vote yes, that becomes the law. That is a referendum. In many states in 2012, same-sex marriage is put before the people as a referendum. The people of the state go to the polls and say, should we recognize same-sex marriages in the state of New Jersey? Yes or no? That is a referendum. A referendum is kind of a call directly to the people. Recall is something where if you get enough signatures on a ballot, you can have an elected official removed from office. This has happened fairly recently. In California, in 2003, Governor Gray Davis, there's Gray Davis, in 2003, Gray Davis was recalled by the voters of California. They did not think he was doing a very good job. They filed a petition to recall Gray Davis. They voted, should we recall Gray Davis, yes or no? And if you voted yes, you had to pick somebody to take his place. And that's how Arnold Schwarzenegger became governor of California in 2003. Initiative, referendum, and recall are progressive ideals because they believe that the people should have this power. And in order for the people to have power, people have to be educated, and educated people exercising a more direct role over the government will create a more efficient, scientific, responsive, democratic government. That was one of the many successes of Governor La Follette. Oliver Wendell Holmes, Jr. was a Supreme Court justice. And Justice Holmes was a Supreme Court justice for a very long time. He supported this idea of the states being laboratories of democracy. He was kind of half a progressive. He thought that if the states could experiment and try things on their own, the states would compete with each other in order to create the best environment for citizens to live. However, he was also against the federal government's interposing itself into the states. He wanted the states to do these progressive things on their own. He was a progressive at the state level. He was not a progressive at the federal level. Intellectually, he was a progressive. He was a believer in science. He was a believer in progress. But he also felt that the limited government of the federal Constitution was something worth keeping. So that's Justice Holmes, supported the right of people like Governor La Follette to make these reforms and make these changes in their states. Another political success of the progressive movement is what was known as the direct primary. This one can get a little bit confuzzling. Ask yourself a question. In the election this year, that is upcoming, how did the Republican Party pick Mitt Romney to run for president against Barack Obama? And for that case, how did Democrats in 2008 pick Barack Obama to run for president? Well, it used to be, until the progressive era, that party bosses, the Republican Party boss from New York, and the Republican Party boss from New Jersey, and Idaho, and Indiana, and Illinois, would all kind of get together, and there'd be a lot of wheeling and dealing and arguing, and then at this convention, everybody would come with their favorite people. Everyone would come with, I want this guy to be president, to run for president. I want that guy to run for president. And in these smoky buildings where these, great fat men with big cigars, argued and talked, after a couple ballots, voila, the Republican Party or the Democratic Party would have their candidate to run for president. Many progressives felt that this was undemocratic. So they favored what they called a direct primary. A direct primary is very simple. Let's say you have a number of Republicans. We'll use this past year, 2012, as our example. You have a number of Republicans who think, hey, I really don't like Barack Obama. I'd like to be president. And let's name these Republicans something. You had Republican Mitt Romney. You had Republican Rick Santorum. You had Republican Newt Gingrich. You had Republican Herman Cain. You had Republican Michelle Bachmann. You had Republican, trying to think about, Rick Perry. Forgot about Governor Perry, the governor of Texas. You had, let's see if I can remember one more. Thaddeus McCutter also kind of ran sort of for president. These were a group of Republicans all saying, hey, I'm the best guy to run against Barack Obama. In the old way, all of these people would send their supporters to the convention in Tampa, Florida, and they'd argue and they'd debate and they'd take a couple votes among themselves, and then all of a sudden, okay, this guy's our nominee. The progressives wanted something different. So every single state in the United States has what's known as a primary election. And Republican voters in those states go to the polls in June, usually, and there's like a couple months this is going on, and they get to pick between a group of 7 Republicans. Who do I want to run for president this year? Mitt Romney, Rick Santorum, Newt Gingrich, Herman Cain, Michelle Bachmann, Rick Perry, Thaddeus McCutter. And I pick them. Whoever wins in New Jersey gets a certain number of delegates. Okay? So let's say Mitt Romney won in New Jersey. Mitt Romney would get 40 delegates. Let's say in Georgia, Newt Gingrich won. Georgia's about the same size population-wise as New Jersey. Newt Gingrich would get 15 delegates. In Minnesota, Michelle Bachmann won. She got 10 delegates. In Texas, Rick Perry won. He got 55 delegates. The first person to get a majority of delegates, you take all 50 states, add up all the delegates that they have to give out, and whoever gets to half of them first becomes the party's nominee. This is called a direct primary because all the Republicans in the country can directly pick who they want to run for office. In 2012, Republicans picked Mitt Romney. In 2008, if you remember, there was 2 real big Democrats that were arguing they should run for president. There was Barack Obama, and there was, come on over here, Mr. President, Hillary Clinton. And if you remember back to 2008, this was a very nasty primary fight. That for months, Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton were going at each other, trying to convince Democrats that Democrats should pick them to run for president in 2008. Eventually, of course, Barack Obama won, and he ran for president in 2008. In 2012, President Obama will run against Mitt Romney, who was picked, nominated in direct primaries by the Republican population of the country. This is a progressive idea because it increases the power of the people. It increases a person's need to be politically active and aware, and it puts a more democratic spin on politics. That's what makes it a progressive success.